Good day, all. This is TurboDave here at Performance Corner um, with bang for your buck. How do you know your parts that you just bought is the best bang for your buck? Um, did the dyno prove it, or did the dyno just prove that it does make more peak horsepower? So there's a difference here. When you buy a part and you're trying to get more horsepower and gains, some parts make good peak horsepower, but they don't make good horsepower across the power band, and that's a big thing because when you see the dynograph, most people look, man, this thing makes a lot of power. Maybe you have 20 horsepower gains, 5 horsepower gains, whatever it is, but are you losing or gaining through the rest of your power band? If your peak power is 6,000 RPM and you're gaining 5, 10, 20 horsepower, or 3 horsepower, whatever it is, where's the rest of the horsepower at? Where's the gains? Is the gains just in your peak horsepower, or is it throughout the power band? Because usually the most important part is throughout the power band, making it, from just off throttle or even 2,000 RPMs. That's the most important part. Is as soon as you get in there, you want to start feeling horsepower, because most of your driving is done, stoplight to stoplight or on the freeway. You're not at 6,000 RPMs. You're just driving normally. So you want to be able to feel those gains, when you're just driving and not just when you're maxed out at 6,000 RPMs or passing through that area. So when you're by a part and you see those gains, make sure that you're getting a part that's got full spectrum horsepower, meaning from beginning to the place where it curtails, it goes down. So you don't want to just buy a peak horsepower part. If a cam says you make great horsepower at 6,500 RPMs, are you losing horsepower at 2,000 RPMs? Is it so big? If it's a race car, yeah, you're building it for this specific RPM band that you're going to be at 90% of the time the car's running. But if you're buying it for a daily driver, or for a car that's a daily driver, or that does track days, you don't want it to always have to be in that RPM power band. You want to be able to enjoy that power, during daily driving. Even if you have to rev it a little bit more, you don't want to have to be peaked out all the time. So, somebody says it's dyno proven parts, you'd want to see the complete power band, the dyno graph of the complete power band, where it starts, where it ends, and how much are your gains. Is it worth it to spend that kind of money on a part? Generally speaking, you get an exhaust or an intake, and you start feeling those power gains right away. With the new computers, you have to let them acclimate, and they make their own adjustments. But you don't want, you start getting into more in depth, or some cars, their setup is so good it's hard to make better intake or better exhaust or better manifold, and you'll see that in the 370Z long intakes video that we did. um, a big company had put out, before Stone made their first Gen 3's long tube intakes, they had put out this other company had put out a thing saying, don't put an intake on your car, they don't make any power. And it took Stone to make the Gen 3 long tube intakes to make power, and they make a lot of power, but sometimes it takes a lot more work to gain on newer cars than it does on previous or older cars. Like back in the days with our Project CRX, you put an intake on it, and yeah, you gain power right away. You put an exhaust, you put a header, everything was a gain right away. Nowadays, a lot of this stuff is so advanced, the way they develop it and stuff like that. It's hard to gain good power for the amount of money you spend. Sometimes you got to start off spending a lot of money before you can make that good horsepower, or make something that makes sense anyways. So just be wary, or be careful what you buy. Make sure that you are getting the best bang for your buck, that you're getting the horsepower you want where you want it. If you have a chance to drive different cars that have these parts on them, friends or whatnot, or family members, drive it, see what you like. There's going to be other things that some of these people might have put on their cars that don't make it as good, but if you can feel, if somebody just puts on an intake and you're able to drive that car with an intake on it, see what it's like. Maybe you have two friends just intakes on their cars, and you can compare them, or they can drive you and compare them, or see their dyno graphs. You know, a lot of people like to dyno their cars, and there's a lot of dynos around. You can see their dyno graphs and see what they've ran, you know, after these parts have been put on. So just be cautious when you're spending your money. Think parts aren't cheap, never have been, but they're seem to be even more expensive now on some things. So check out your dyno graphs wisely, and the installation of your parts wisely, and make sure that they're installed right. You know, that's also another thing, is once you get these parts, installing them can be something. It seems like you can't do anything wrong, but if there's in the case of an intake, a leak, you know, that can be a problem. Exhaust, if they have to touch the oxygen sensors, you know, making sure that they put them back right, they're not melting. You're gonna have different issues with stuff like that. But yeah, just be cautious, enjoy your parts, and have fun. This is Turbo Dave here at Performance Corner. Be safe.